Welcome to the Geek and I podcast. My name is John, and we are part of the Geek News Now podcast network. Visit them online at geeknewsnow.net for all your geeky news and information. We are sponsored this week by Sumner Twins Talent. Find them on Facebook at facebook.com/Sumner Twins. And let me bring in my co-host, Jeff Dickinson of the Collector Zone. Jeff, how are you this week?
Dude, doing most excellent. Thank you once again for having me on for another killer show.
All right, and we have a great guest lined up today. Why don't you do your introduction and let's meet this gentleman.
Man, this dude's killer. Check this out. He's like the ultimate collector. He creates his own movie cars. We're talking exact replicas. We're talking about the kit car from Knight Rider, A-Team van, the Echo 1 from Ghostbusters. But most importantly, we're talking about Back to the Future, the Delorean. Let's welcome to the show, Videobob.
Hey, what's going on?
How are you, sir?
Hey.
Right
Doing
on,
pretty
man.
good. Waiting for the end of the world.
Oh, yeah. He's pretty good at that intro stuff, isn't he?
Yeah.
I try. But Videobob, we have one question that's been burning our audiences. This is about your passion, the thing that clicked in your head the moment you said, I'm doing this. I'm going to create exact replicas of movie cars. We're talking like the Echo. We're talking about like the Back to the Future Delorean. Take us back to that moment in time where you said, you know what? This is my thing, and I'm going to make it happen. Tell us about that story.
I think it emanated originally just out of sarcasm. I bought a DeLorean car in 2003. I was watching Discovery Channel. Remember that show Monster Garage with Jesse James?
Mm-hmm.
That was my favorite show because I liked fabrication. At the time, I was working as a chief engineer for a television network, and I was building mobile video production trucks, and I had invented some things for the video industry. So I was capable with metal fabrication, electronics, and things. I worked on VTRs and cameras and things for a living. So I knew how to work on electronics. And I'm watching this show, and the particular episode, everybody had these DeLoreans that they were customizing. And I thought, wow, that would be a really cool car, stainless steel car, the Back to the Future car. So I found one locally for sale in Dallas, and I bought it for, I think I paid $14,000 for that car. And this was in 2003. So the thing is, when you have a DeLorean everywhere you go, people just make Back to the Future jokes. And I literally heard this exact phrase 1,000 times. People would come up to me like they were just the biggest comedian ever, and they'd go, "Hey, McFly, where's your flux capacitor?" So I said, I know what I'm going to do to fix these morons. I went out into the back and I got myself an electrical enclosure. I looked at the movie. I made a flux capacitor. I put it in the car, plugged it in the cigarette lighter, and I'd go, "Here it is, butthead." And they'd go, "Oh my God, he's actually got a flux capacitor in the car. It's the time machine." So I kept going out into the garage and making more and more parts. I made the plutonium gauges that went into the glove compartment, and then I made the upper console, and then I made, but I didn't do any destruction to the car. I was too afraid. I mean, I had that car for probably 4 years before I ever drilled a hole in it, And then I had met Roger Staubach, the Dallas Cowboy, who's a real estate guy. And he said, I love the car. I'm doing a thing called Staubach to the Future. I'll pay you like $500 if you'll bring the car to this event. And I was like, okay. And so what I did was I went in the backyard and I mocked up the rear vents and things for the car out of like MDF and wood and spray painted it and hot glue. And I made the stuff for the outside of the car and just like taped it to the car. It was so bad, right? But it kind of got me going, and the response was overwhelming. And I met somebody actually from Walmart Corporation, and they said, "We would like you to bring this to our corporate headquarters in Bentonville. We would like to use it for a video with our CFO and CEO of Sam's Club, and we will pay you."
Wow.
And a light bulb went off in my head. I go, you know what? I think people would pay me to show up with this DeLorean. Now, of course, I was a fan of Back to the Future, of course. But I'm not going to lie, it was more of a light bulb moment almost as a business idea, because I saw this really fun opportunity in the entertainment business to rent props. And I realized that I was really good at building these things. So I started working on the car, kept getting it better and better. Then I added a Knight Rider car to the fleet about 2004. So I had a Knight Rider, I had the DeLorean, and that's just kind of how it started. Now, I just had the one car up until 2010. 2009, I got divorced, as does happen. And when that happens, you generally have to get rid of everything you own, because that's just what happens. So I sold the car. But that's when another light bulb moment went off. Because this car that I had spent 15 grand on, let's say, I sold the car for $45,000. This was 10 years ago.
Nice.
And I was like, I can't believe how much money I got for this DeLorean, because the average DeLorean back then was going for 20 grand tops. People weren't spending that much on a DeLorean. Mm-hmm. And when I had sold the car, I'd put up an ad on YouTube and on MySpace. Remember MySpace?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
But I took the money and I opened up a restaurant in downtown Deep Ellum, downtown Dallas. It's the restaurant, or the bar is still there. It's called Reno's Chop Shop. But I had the restaurant there. It was Reno's Bar and Grill. And we were open for less than a year, but we did really well. And I ended up selling the restaurant for a profit. But the reason I got out of the restaurant was a couple of reasons. But, well, for one, if you've ever ran a restaurant, don't. But for months, my phone would ring. I would get emails from people who had seen the ad for the car and was like, is the car still available? I'll buy it right now. I want the car. And there was this dude in Canada kept calling me, says, dude, I want everything you got. I want this Knight Rider. I want the DeLorean. I go, dude, it's gone. I don't have it. He said, just make it again. No one does this. You're the only person I've ever seen to do. No one's ever done this. And he said, man, I will wire you. What do you want? 80 grand? I'll wire it to you today. Let's just make this happen. And I'm sitting there printing out the receipts for my $2 hot dogs and stuff. And I'm like, I'm only making like 10 grand a month in sales at this restaurant. Like even with perfect food costs, what am I walking away with? A couple grand a month. This is not going to fly. I'm making hamburgers like I was when I was 16 working at Jack in the Box. So I was like, I'm going to open up a shop and start building these cars. And that was in the end of 2009. By the time I had built the first car, or rather the second, if you want to call it that, and as soon as I put up pictures of that thing, it went viral, and people were calling me for cars 3 and 4 and 5. So it's literally been that way ever since November 2009 when I opened the shop. I've had a standing list of orders to build cars. So since that time, by the way, I started off renting one bay of this 5-bay building. I now own the entire building outright. It's mine.
Nice.
And we've built 35 DeLorean time machines. We've built, 7 or 8 Bluesmobiles, 7 or 8 Knight Riders. And I say 7 or 8 because I can't remember them all. I'd have to count them all. We've done, and we did a bunch of other cars because, I'm kind of skipping ahead. 2014, I did my own television show called Screen Machines on the Reels channel. We only did 6 episodes of that, and we did a different car every episode. But then a company called TCB Media Rights bought it and took it international through Discovery Networks. So it was a big hit in like Singapore and Malaysia and Brazil and New Zealand and France and Australia. But I didn't get a lot of fame here, unfortunately. But it was big overseas. I didn't realize how big it was till me and my wife went to Sydney, Australia last year, and people were, running up to us asking us for autographs. And we're like, what the hell is going on? We went into a bar and there's the show on TV opening up for Gas Monkey on Discovery Channel. It was a primetime show. Blew me away. Had no idea. I don't get residuals or anything. The thing about reality shows is that they pay you a few shekels and then that's it. You don't get anything. Mm-hmm. And you have no control.
Kind of like David Hasselhoff going to Australia, huh?
Yeah, it's like when David Hasselhoff goes to... Well, David Hasselhoff is famous everywhere. That's not a good example. Here, nobody really recognizes me. I did the TV show Pawn Stars a few times, and people recognize me from that. I did a show called Auction Kings on Discovery Channel. So, and that was really one of the keys to my kind of, I guess, success, is that I would use the vehicles as a tool to get myself onto other shows for self-promotion. You know, the Pawn Stars, you know, they would have me on with the Ghostbuster Proton Pack that we build, or the Time Machine. I went on there with the Back to the Future Sports Almanac. So I've
You
been
still
on
have
there.
that one?
No, we sold it. We did a charity auction for Michael J. Fox Foundation. We raised $8,500 for it.
Very cool.
Right on.
Very cool.
But
So
you know, and go ahead.
when you do a show like Pawn Stars, do they contact you, or are you like in Vegas and you walk in and say, you know, I want to sell this, and they like, hold up, let's get the cameras?
No, that's not how it works. You write them. You say, this is what I have. One of their producers will write you back and say, okay, we're interested in the item. We're interested in you. This is the day we're going to do it. Be there at this time. They don't pay you. They will sometimes put you up in a room if it's a 2-day thing, like if their expert isn't available the same day. Because I think the last time I was on, they put me up at the D Hotel on Fremont for some, I forget why. I think it was because they changed the day to the next day or something. And they, you know, but they don't pay you to be on. And it is a legitimate pawn shop transaction, you know, but it's, so the negotiation is all ad-libbed. It's all genuine. The only thing is that you have to do some production work. For instance, they'll say, okay, we just need you to, we need close-ups of you pointing at things, or we need another shot of you walking through the door.
Just some
things like
B-roll.
that. Yeah, B-roll stuff. But they don't tell you what to say or what to do or anything like that. I mean, it's a true negotiation. They are actual pawn dealers. They do actually purchase the item, pay you cash, and give you a real receipt. That all happens. But what a lot of people don't understand is, when I was on the show, the first, you know, I think I was on the 8th season, and they were still shooting in the store. Well, it got to be such a problem shooting in the store, because what they would have to do is kick everybody out, have a security guard stand at the door. They would handpick shoppers to mull around the store and make no noise. Like in that one episode, you could see my wife and my friend pretending to shop for wedding rings over there. And so what they did was they probably don't want me to say this. They built an entire replica of the pawn shop in a building behind the pawn shop. So you go through the back of the pawn shop into a warehouse that has been made to look exactly like the pawn shop. It's got a bunch of.
Is that where they used to drive the cars through?
Yeah, I guess it is. Yeah, it could be, because, you know, you go down the hallway in there, if you've ever been in there, and they have an exact replica. And the way you could tell right away, because the front door is a fake door. You know, it's just a frosted door. It doesn't have hinges on it or a handle. Doesn't have any cars driving by. It's like, it's so obvious that it's a fake door. And all the merchandise in it is lame. You know, it's like they just put in some empty boxes and cheap watches and stuff. You know, the original one was very cluttered. I mean, it's packed. And if you ever go to the pawn shop in Vegas, you have to wait in line to get in, and you go through there, and it's just full of tchotchkes. And mostly the stuff they sell is like Chumley shirts. But, you know, they needed to do this not to fool the audience, but because, you know, they can't shut down the store selling shirts, you know, while they shoot all day. So I don't consider it to be disingenuous. But, you know, the thing is the expert, the buddy, is standing over there drinking a Starbucks, you know, on his phone, waiting to be called. And he goes, okay, I'm going to call an expert. And he comes walking over. We're not waiting for this dude to drive from the museum. He's standing over there waiting like this for him to come over. So that's all pre-planned. But, you know, I don't think that takes away from the actual genuine nature of the show. The expert opinion is the expert opinion. It's, you know, it's just, he just happens to be there. I don't understand the whole purpose of all the fakery, though. I hated it when we did my TV show. On my TV show, you know, I had this director, and I used to fight with him every episode, because we would take a car that I already owned. We would go put it in a junkyard, and then I would pretend to go and buy it. What was the point of that, right? He would create fake customers that were actors, so he's like we did the Scarface car episode. Now I already had this 1963 Cadillac. It was sitting in my parking lot. But what we did for the TV show is we took the car to a junkyard, threw leaves on top of it. Then I go to the junkyard and negotiate for it and buy it, bring it back to my shop. And then the buyer for the car was actually Chi-Chi, the guy who played Chi-Chi, Angel Salazar who's in the movie Scarface, because I know him, he's a comedian. But he didn't actually buy the car. I still have the car. It's at my shop. It's up on a rack at my shop. And I used to argue with him. I go, why can't the show just be, I'm Videobob. I got a 1963 Cadillac. We're going to build it into the Scarface car. That's the episode. But
Right.
all of these reality shows, they have to have this bunch of fakery happen. And it's so funny that they call it a reality show. Nothing real happens on a reality show.
Right.
The only thing that really happened is we really built the car. Everything else, total BS.
So when you
Speaking of car-
when you
Go ahead, John.
when you do build a car, like say this one here, I have a little picture here. So when you're building kit, what you're looking at photos of the original? Are you visiting, like, if there's the actual screen used one? Are you just guessing, or are you, and where do you get all these parts? And like that steering wheel, is that manufactured by you, or does somebody make that already?
Well, there's such a big fan community of all these different things that we all work together. So you don't have to make stuff as much as you used to have to. Back in the day, you just had VHS tapes. I remember, like, before you could take a screenshot of something, I would take a Polaroid photo of my TV. Imagine pausing a VCR and taking a Polaroid and covering the flash and taking a picture of your TV glass screen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And look at the picture. That's how old I am. But as DVD came along, you could pause a picture. I mean, I remember taking a TV and a DVD player out to my garage and pausing the DVD, and you look at it real carefully. And so what I did, part of my story about the Back to the Future DeLorean time machine is back in 2004, I got in my Ford station wagon. I drove that sumbitch all the way to LA from Dallas. Got myself a hotel, bought a 3-day pass at Universal Studios Hollywood. And back then they still had the Back to the Future, the ride, and they had the DeLorean sitting outside. And I asked one of the employees there, I go, who's in charge of the car? Like, who's the guy in charge of the transportation? Oh, that's such and such. I went and found that guy, and I said, what's it going to take for me to get access to this car? I've got a tape measure. I've got I'd like to make some notes. I'm going to build a replica of it. I want to measure things. He goes, we can't do that. We can't let people touch a car. I was like, sure you can. I was like, what's this going to take here? I've got some, guy says, yeah, okay. Let's meet up on my lunch break and I'll take you to go visit the car. So I got access to the car. I took measurements. I wrote down serial numbers, whatever I could find on the car. Also, I watched the movie, and at the end of the movie, you watch the credits, and it says, special effects props, Kevin Pike. Well, I Googled Kevin Pike. I called this dude up. I said, you worked on Back to the Future? He goes, yes, we did. I go, I'd like to hire you as a consultant for the day. What would you charge me to consult with me about Back to the Future? He goes, I charge, $500, whatever. Okay. Well, what was this part? Well, we went down to this junkyard. What was the junkyard? Well, I'll take you down there. So I went back to LA. We went to the same junkyards and electronic places where they went in 1985. And lo and behold, they had some of the exact same stuff still on the shelf years later. I mean, I have so many stories about how I found parts there. Like, there's these little metal canisters on the back of the car, and they were using them as parts bins. They had them everywhere. They were lined up with like nuts and bolts in them. And I was like, the hell? This is the thing on the back of the car. Mm-hmm. I was like, I want to buy this. And the lady's like, no. It's for my nuts and bolts. I go, I'll buy all the nuts and bolts. I was just like, shh, I just want this can.
Right.
And
you do whatever you can with it, with whatever I have a friend who's a prop builder. And during the late 90s, we worked when I was living in New York, we worked for MTV building sets for Ricky Rackman and Headbangers Ball. And he would be building walls and stuff. And he's like, it would be cool. Give me that ashtray over there. And he'd take the ashtray and give it a couple of whacks and then stick it to the wall.
I have one of those.
I want to hear that story.
What is that for? Where'd you get that one from?
Well, MTV Award?
I skipped over, a whole bunch of stuff because we're talking about movie props. But 2006, I started working for a drummer named Vinnie Paul. He was in a band called Pantera. And after that band, for those who don't know heavy metal, he had a band called Pantera with his brother Daryl. And in 2004, a crazy gunman killed his brother. Came on stage and shot his brother. So he decided to put out some of his brother's unreleased music, one of which was an entire album they made with the country singer David Allan Coe, called Rebel Meets Rebel. It was never released. And he wanted to start his own record company. And of course, I told my name is Videobob, and I told you I was doing video engineering, but since the 90s, I've been making heavy metal music videos. I've done over 350 of them. Bands, mostly, I guess, to the general public are unknown bands, but to metal people are well known. People like Typo Negative and Gwar, Megadeth, all kinds of bands. And I had a cable access show long before there was internet and podcasting and this kind of thing. I was doing this on cable access, like Wayne's World back in the 90s, That's how we used to do it back in the day. Back in 94, 95, I had a show called Underground Connection. I had the Videobob show. I had a thing called the Church of Howard. So in Dallas-Fort Worth, I was doing cable access. And I was doing these music videos for local bands. And so Vinny hired me to work with him at his record company. We put out a book called Dimebag, He Came to Rock. We did a DVD called Dime Vision. That's the Fun I Have, which was a retail release product available at Best Buy, and and I did the music video for Rebel Meets Rebel, which played on Headbangers Ball on MTV2, best heavy metal video for the year, which featured unused or unseen video of Daryl, the only live performance they ever did together, along with new footage that we put together. You can find it. It's called Rebel Meets Rebel, Nothing to Lose. It has millions of views on the internet. So then he started another band called Hell Yeah with the members of Mudvayne. And I did the videos for that. I did the first couple of music videos for them. To this day, Alcohol and Ass video is one of their top viewed videos out of all their videos. And it's alcoholin, like haulin ass. It's alcohol and ass. But for that,
great play on words.
Yeah, so I also drove the tour bus. So I drove their tour bus, and after I parked and cleaned the bus, then I filmed the show. So we did a DVD for that was called, Hell Yeah, Below the Belt, that was available in Best Buy. Then I did another DVD for them called Hell Yeah, Live from Dallas, also available in Best Buy. So I did a bunch of music videos for them. I had MTV videos going, so that was my world. I mean, I did thousands of commercials. I also used to produce NWA Wrestling. Back in the early 2000s, I was the voice of NWA, did all the voiceover stuff.
I didn't know.
Yeah, coming up, it's Down the Beach 7 and Over the Top Battle Royale with Ken Shamrock this Sunday. I did all that stuff. That's why I have all this recording equipment. I have a whole booth of, sound effects and things where I would do those, Guitar Center, Fender Stratocasters, only $99.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite line was always, prices so low, we can't tell you what they are. But so I did that kind of stuff. I did voiceovers, phone systems, and so that's why I got the nickname Videobob. I got that name back at probably about 93, so I've been Videobob ever since. So I did all those video things, as well as what else was I doing? I was doing engineering. I had a TV show called Videobob Stupid Movie of the Week, which was kind of a take on like Elvira or Joe Bob Briggs or something.
Mhm.
You know, like we would play old horror movies and sci-fi movies, and then I would come in but I didn't talk over the movie or make fun of them. I would more kind of give you facts. And that show ran in 70 different cities. It came on like Saturday mornings, 3 a.m. on the worst station in town. And I didn't know anybody watched it until I went out to LA to visit my friend Larry Butler, you know. And he said, "Hey, I'm going to this Fangoria convention," because he was in a horror movie. And he said, "We're going to go there because I'm making an appearance." And while I'm walking around with him, people are recognizing me because I guess my show was on in Fresno there. And all the other horror hosts and all these other horror fans he was getting jealous. He was like, "I brought you as a guest and people are asking you for photos."
So what do you like better? What do you like? Do you like doing the cars better, or do you miss doing the videos? I mean, you're still doing videos. I see your YouTube channel has you know.
I just hit 96,000 today. 96,000 subscribers today. Obviously, I like to be on camera, and you know, I think that was my point earlier about the cars. Is I use the cars literally as a vehicle for self-promotion.
Mm-hmm.
I do like the creative process. You know, it's very satisfying to make something. But I think if I had my choice, I'd rather be a personality on screen. You know, I'd rather be a game show host or something if I had my way. You know, I'd love to be like a Joe Rogan. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to have to act and portray someone else. I just want to be me on camera. You know, I don't want to play a character, just what I'm doing right now. If I could get paid to do what I'm doing now. But I got to be honest, I started doing a podcast just like this one on my channel, and every single episode I would lose subscribers. I'd lose like 3 or 4 subscribers, you know, but it was enough to just make me go, woo.
Why?
Because people just want to see the cars.
Right.
They tune into my channel. They want to see the Rolls Royce. I have a Rolls Royce Phantom that we do videos on. They want to that car gets the most views. We did an oil change on a Rolls Royce Phantom, and it got over 1 million views. Just people watching us change the oil on a Rolls Royce. You know,
and you went to the Yugo, which was killer.
I just sold the Yugo. I have a pink Yugo, and I'm not gonna lie, I bought it for the views. And but then at the end of the day, it's a Yugo. So I sold it on eBay for $3,500.
So do you have like cars in mind that you say, you know, if I got one of these, this is at least 1.5 million views on this thing. You know, all I need to do is change the tire on this thing. And
sometimes that seems to be the Rolls Royce for me. But you know, people ask me all the time, what is a movie car that you've always wanted to do? I've always wanted to do the family truckster from National Lampoon's, the big green station wagon.
You think you hate it now? Wait till you drive it.
But it's really hard to find 2 of those because you got to have 2 of them to make one. Mm-hmm. And it's impossible to find one. Sometimes the most simple cars are some of the hardest ones to find, like the A-Team van. Finding a 80s panel van, you know, G30 van or G20 van with no windows in it in good condition is virtually impossible. I mean, we've done it, but it's harder to do than the DeLorean because they made like 9,000 DeLoreans, and people don't throw away DeLoreans. People don't take DeLoreans down to the junkyard and crush them for $200. They keep them forever. And they're stainless steel, so they don't rust. So you can find a DeLorean and fix it, right? But an 82 Trans Am, hell, back in the 90s, you know, but when Cash for Clunkers came along, oh, you'll give me $500 for this pile of crap? Take it. So now you can't hardly find a Trans Am. You can't find a 80s G van. You know what I mean? Right. And those old station wagons are going for a ton of money because that old ugly looking brown and green wagon that your dad had that you hated, well, that thing got crushed, and now you can't find one anywhere. There's a lot of 90s cars that are just 80s and 90s cars. They just cannot be found because nobody wanted it. Just like the Ford Taurus. You know, when we did the RoboCop car for the 30th anniversary, which was a 1986 Ford Taurus LX sedan, first year of the car. Those are impossible to find. And it used to be the most popular car in America. So here was a car that you couldn't, walk through a parking lot without stubbing your toe on one. Now you can't find one.
Right.
And talking about the Yugo, if we're going to talk about cars, the Yugo has always been considered the worst car ever made. And the interesting thing about that car is it was made by a company called Zastava that made guns in Serbia, former Yugoslavia. They made that same car the same way for many, many years. That car is a little tank. It's made out of steel, and you can still find and drive a Yugo today, but all of its competition is gone. You can't find a Hyundai Excel. You can't find a Citation or a Chevette. All of the cars that it was its competition back in the 80s, they're gone, but you could still find Yugos because they kept making them. And that, you talk about a car that can drive through the mountains of Serbia. Well, I had an 88 Hyundai, and I leaned in to wipe off the window, and the fender bent in with my knee. And you can't find a Hyundai Excel for any amount of money. I've been looking for one just for nostalgic purposes. And, some of your younger viewers wouldn't know that car, but that's the car that introduced Hyundai. It was advertised as the $5,000 car. You could walk into a dealership with $49.95 and drive out with a brand new car.
Right. Yep.
The Yugo was $39.95.
I used to own one of those. And here's the crazy part. And this Videobob, how hard is it to get a hearse for the Echo? Because that to me is impossible.
It's the Ecto. The Ecto one. Yeah. It's a 1959 Cadillac Miller Meteor. Now, the car pictured there is actually a 1960, which is almost the same car. Tail fins are a little different. And it's because the 59 is just impossible to find. You got to think that they probably only made 50 or 100 of them that year, and they had to survive all these years, So we do have a 1959 that we're restoring right now. And Ghostbusters 3 wanted to buy it from me, and I wouldn't sell it to them because they were having a hard time finding the cars for the new movie. But that car there has been sold, actually. I sold it. I kind of regret selling it. But, hey, I sold for a ton of money.
I see you cruising in it.
Yeah, so the one we're going to build, we're going to put a modern LS1 motor in it and air conditioning and make it into like a limousine. And we're going to rent it out in Vegas is the plan. We're going to do like ghost tours in Vegas. Imagine going to Vegas and you get to ride around in the Ghostbuster car. That's going to be part of our plan for our Vegas move. And then
right next to the Ecto one is, I think is that the front of the Bluesmobile?
1974 Dodge Monaco. That car was a utility car back in the 70s. They used them for police cars, taxis. That was Roscoe P. Coltrane's car in the Dukes of Hazzard. That was his police car. And so when the Blues Brothers came out in 1990, the gag was that you could buy one of those cars for $100, because it was a big pile of crap. And there's still big piles of crap, but now they go for, I think the last one of those I sold for like $30,000 because they're hard to get. I have a couple of them actually right now. I have a 2-door version that's just a personal beater car of mine, and then I have 2 more that we just built. I'm about to deliver a Bluesmobile to a dude. But again, people call me up all the time. They want the Ecto one, but it doesn't exist. I tell people it's not for sale. You can't buy one. I mean, there aren't any. If you find one, let me know. Same thing with the Dodge Monaco. And all these years we've done, I think, 8 of them. So we find one about every year and a half or so. But I mean, they weren't cars that you took care of because it was a kind of a poor man's working car. It wasn't a fine automobile. It wasn't a Cadillac or anything. They were nice. It was a mid-range full-size car, but they weren't super expensive. And it was a working dude's car. You were a guy who worked at a plant. You drove this car to work, and Cash for Clunkers just got rid of so many great cars over the years that we lost so many of these grand cars. And that's why they're now exploding in value, because guys my age are going, man, I wish I could get that car that I wanted in high school.
Right. My parents had a 1992 Oldsmobile Silhouette, the one that looked like, I don't know, like a giant eraser or just like a scrubber.
Looked like a cheese wedge.
Yeah. And my friends wanted to, they big Star Trek fans, all of us. So we wanted to turn it into a shuttlecraft from the next generation. Just slap a couple of nacelles on the side. Do you ever turn cars into stuff like that, or do you just mod them to keep them like movie accurate for Earthbound beings?
I do try to do screen accurate stuff, and I hate to sound so capitalist, but I really just try to concentrate on stuff that makes money, because no one who comes to me and says, I want to take a silhouette and make it into a landing shuttle is going to pay me anything to do it.
Well, just wait. Once this broadcast goes on.
I mean, the Pontiac had a version of that. Mercury had a version of it. That was a popular minivan at the time. And you can still find those once in a while for like $5,000. You see them floating around. But yeah, that's a good example. Those kind of vehicles now are garnering a lot of attention on the internet, because you can only watch so many videos about McLarens and Ferraris and stuff before that gets old.
Right.
So now people have a fantasy or fascination, I should say, about a lot of these, what they call Radwood cars. That's the nickname for these 80s and 90s cars, And I find myself falling into it too. But when I was a teenager, I wanted a Mitsubishi Eclipse like everybody. A 1990, 91, when the Eclipse came out, it was such a cool looking car. It was so futuristic looking.
I like the Talon better, the Eagle Talon.
You're right. Yeah, I prefer the Eagle Talon Turbo. And I found one recently, and I was pretty close to buying it. The dude wanted $10,000 for it.
What?
I was like, yeah. And this was a car that was a throwaway car. And the reason you can't find them is because it was a piece of shit. They've all been crushed. So that's a lot of times rare doesn't mean expensive, but a lot of cars just disappeared with, we started creating disposable cars, basically. That are no different than a Bic lighter or a pen. Right. You're done with it, you throw it out, and so that's what's making these cars. So just like the Yugo, it's extremely rare, but look, I sell it for $3,500. It's not a lot of money. I just, stuff doesn't cost, things are so much more expensive now. When I think about when I was younger, what something cost and the value you got for your money, just like now listen, I make a good living, so I buy frivolous things, because I just bought this pair of shoes and they were like $800. Pair of shoes. And a couple of my employees, they just couldn't even fathom this, because right. I know what I pay them, they're not buying $800 shoes.
Bob, what was one car that is a movie car that you are thinking about making, but you have not done yet?
Well, I think it was that family truckster I mentioned earlier. I've always wanted to do that, from National Lampoons. I've kind of done them all.
We saw the Jurassic Park.
Yeah, I did Jurassic Park. I did Knight Rider, the A-Team, the Blues Brothers, Back to the Future. I've done all the big ones. I've never done a Batmobile, but I've never really been into comics and Batman and Batman. The 89 Keaton Batmobile is cool. That one's cool. But I also don't like cars that aren't real cars, because you can't actually drive it. Right. You might be able to make it drive on a flat movie set, but you've never seen one going down the road, and there's a reason, So
the one you're building for yourself, the 35th, DeLorean, that's for you. Tell me about that passion.
My car.
Why you're keeping this one.
Well, that's going to be our Vegas car, but it's when I say it's my car, it's going to be one that I'm not going to sell. I don't know how much I'm going to actually drive it around. Listen, I'm spoiled rotten. I drive a Rolls-Royce Phantom, as I mentioned. I enjoy comfort. I'm 46 years old. I like air conditioning. Listen, the DeLorean has air conditioning, but we're trying to turn this car into as much of a Cadillac as we can. We've installed a custom electronic power steering system in the car. We're modifying the air conditioning to be as maximized as it can be. We're probably going to put a custom engine in the car. We're putting in a rear view video camera system that'll be active all the time, like the new Cadillacs have that have it looks like a rear view mirror, but it's actually a screen.
Because you can't see out the back, right?
Yeah, because you can't see out the back. You can't see out the front. I mean, it's it was made for a movie for a dude that was 5'2".
Yeah.
I mean, so we're trying to make the car as usable as we can. Plus, we want to rent the car and let people drive it, which I know sounds insane. So we had to make a car that was an automatic. Because these millennial punks, they don't know how to drive a stick. We're making an automatic with power steering, with air conditioning, with backup camera. It's going to have all the stuff a modern car is going to have.
Now, are you doing the Part 1 version or the Mr. Fusion?
Okay. I get asked this all the time. And let me correct you.
Well,
like everybody else.
Part 1 and the Mr. Fusion is in Part 2.
Mr. Fusion is at the end of Part 1.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this drives Kevin Pike crazy. Because they go, this is the Part 2 car. And he goes, asshole, I made this car for Part 1. It had a huge scene with the Mr. Fusion at the end of Part 1.
Mm-hmm.
But the Mr. Fusion is the most popular car because it was seen in all 3 movies. So, but in Part 1, you first see the plutonium chamber, then you see the lightning rod edition, and then you see the Mr. Fusion at the end. So you see all 3 versions of the car. But then there becomes another version, the one that you see with the 50s wheels and the thing on the hood. And then you get yet another version of the car, Part 3, with the train wheels as the cars on the train tracks. So you have all of those different versions of the car. We do the Mr. Fusion version of the car. Now, we also do the plutonium chamber. My car is actually both because the way the car actually is the Mr. Fusion is a thing that just sits on top of the plutonium chamber. Just take that off and the plutonium chamber is underneath.
Right.
And that's how it really was on the movie because Mr. Fusion was just sort of a gag at the end. So what they did was they just made a platform that just covered the plutonium chamber with the Mr. Fusion adapter thing on top. And they just needed it to happen quickly. It was probably something that they thought of and wrote into the script at the end. They're like, well, the car needs to be different somehow because probably in the future, you're not going to be able to get plutonium. It's going to be controlled substance like it is now. And so we need to come up with another, more futuristic thing that would prove that he came back from the future. So how do we prove the car came back from the future? Well, the car can fly and the car runs on cold fusion. And here we are 5 years after 2015. And all we can come up with is a Toyota Prius.
Right. And
still waiting.
Beer into it.
and banana peels.
Yeah, and Miller Lite. I'm still waiting for my flying car. They've been promising this shit for 50 years.
Have you ever built any General Lees, or do people ask you for those, or are they tough to find? Do you know, or?
A little bit. I've never done the General Lee because of a couple of reasons. Number one, it's not challenging. You're just painting a 69 Charger. And I know General Lee guys out there are going to go, no, you have to do a push bumper. You have to put in a roll bar. You have to do the correct interior. You have to put on the correct wheels.
Not getting lynched in the process.
That's all AutoZone stuff to me. That's too easy. That's just painting a car. And also, not to get into a political conversation, but I don't want to deal with its association.
Right.
It doesn't bother me at all. Which, by the way, I recently had a bit of a ethical conversation with some people who were very anti the rebel flag. Because I have rebel flags here in my house. And the reason I have them is because, well, I don't have flags per se. I have things that have the rebel flag on them. This record was called Rebel Meets Rebel with David Allen Coe. And I made the physical CD. The cover of that CD, the artist who did the rendering of it, the CD is a rebel flag with bottles of whiskey and poker chips and money. And And this was sold in Walmart. It was sold in Best Buy. It was sold at FYE. It was a #1 video. It was all these things back in 2006. And I have the gold records on my wall that have those Rebel flags on them. I have a Billboard Award for Rebel Meets Rebel. And
Killer album, by the way.
And I have a guitar, a David Allan Coe guitar that is a Washburn Dimebag edition, and it's a Rebel flag, X guitar. And I have another acoustic guitar that I got that's from David Allan Coe that he signed. That's an acoustic guitar, and the guitar itself is a Rebel flag. And then I have another Rebel flag guitar. So I have like 3 Rebel flag guitars. And so anybody who knows the band Pantera, Rebel flags are a huge part of their aesthetic. It was in their albums. It was on Daryl's guitars. And growing up, none of us looked at it as a form of racism. It's hard to explain to someone of a different generation. And I can't see things through the eyes of a minority, of a black person who maybe saw that flag differently.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that was me having blinders on and seeing it only what I wanted to see. So now in this new generation, we have to make the decision to say to ourselves, okay, it doesn't matter what our view of the Rebel flag was. What matters is what these other people feel like it represents. And do I want to, now with this new information, offend them?
Right.
And so I had to, I took down some of this stuff. I still have my gold records and I still have the guitars that have the Rebel flags on them. And I've been struggling with it lately, saying, I have people who come over here and they're not going to appreciate that. We have this is a new generation now. Things change. And what do I do? Do I take down my greatest awards, the things I've worked so hard for that I'm so proud of, because they now have these symbols on them that are considered racist and hateful? So the General Lee is another one of those examples. When somebody comes to me and they go, well, I want you to build me a General Lee, I go, no, I'm not building you a car with a Rebel flag on the roof, and I'm also not building a car incomplete. So I'm just not going to do it.
Right.
So every time somebody brings up that car, all this goes through my head. And I know David Allan Coe, the country singer. He stays here at the house. He's a personal friend. And he did some novelty racist songs in the 60s. I think that's well known. And he's explained to me, he goes, it was a different time. You used to watch television and movies, and they said the N-word freely on television and movies and in songs. I was watching some old Eddie Murphy stuff. He was one of my favorite comedians. And you think about, you said you worked for MTV. Their theme song was Dire Straits' I Want My MTV, and they say the F word for gay all through that song.
Yeah.
They also make fun of minorities. Look at this monkey banging on those bongos. That's his own hair. That, I'm not going to say the word because I don't want YouTube to flag it. But, you watch any movie from anything from the early 80s, mid 80s. I was watching The Breakfast Club, and there's Michael Anthony Hall calling each other the F word, So it was just, I understand David when he says, it was a different time. People used the N-word in a comical fashion, and it was a more accepted word. You heard it on the radio. You saw it in movies. You'd see blaxploitation films with the N-word in the title of the film.
Right.
And so I always bring this up as an example. I know that we've gone in a completely different direction, but it does have to do with the projects I choose now.
Right.
A customer of mine who bought, I went on a TV show called Auction Kings in Atlanta, sold a DeLorean time machine. The guy that bought the car is a guy who, he invented the glow stick or something, made a lot of money doing that. And he has a novelty company. So whenever you buy the little bracelets and necklaces and earrings that are glow sticks, that's his company, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's a Jewish guy, and his parents, I guess, or his grandparents were, survivors of the Holocaust. And for whatever reason, that triggered him to collect Nazi memorabilia, which is odd.
That's weird.
Well, I guess it's all about remembering history. And I was looking at his collection, and I noticed this little brass lighter. I had it sitting here. I've had it for years. I don't know. I'd have to find it. It's a little brass lighter with a swastika on it, but the swastika is on top of a 4-leaf clover. And I said, that's interesting. He said, you know what? You can have that. I don't want that. And I was like, well, why would I want this? He said, that's not a Nazi lighter. That's why I don't want it. It's not part of the collection. He said, previous to the 40s, when the Nazis took over and started using that symbol, it was an Irish good luck charm. Like in the 20s, you could buy a lighter with this 4-leaf clover with that symbol on it. But as that symbol became known as a symbol of hate, people got rid of this stuff because now it meant something else. Mm-hmm. So this stuff is extremely hard to find. It's hard to find these keychains, these necklaces, these rings, these lighters, because people saw that symbol and they got rid of it. That's what makes it so rare. And I think about that often when I look at the world that we're in now politically, and I look at things like the rebel flag, and I go, wow, when I was growing up, you could just go down to, you could go buy yourself a General Lee and play with it, and you saw that little symbol on it, and it didn't mean anything to you as a white kid, or maybe even a black kid. If you were watching the TV show, I didn't say anything racist on that TV show. Mm-hmm. But as things change, and as hate groups started adopting that flag and using it as a vehicle to promote their message, well, it's unfortunately it soured what was a good thing. So now I'm in a situation where I walk into my room and I have one of my greatest achievements on the wall, and it's marred by what is now considered a symbol of racism.
Right.
Maybe it was always considered a symbol of racism, and I just didn't acknowledge it, is really what their argument is. And it's tough for me because I love the Dukes of Hazzard. I love the General Lee, but I wouldn't be caught dead near a 69 Orange Charger right now.
So let me ask you.
Sorry for that long explanation. So
yeah, no, I am looking at some. I googled your name, of course, and looking at some of the pictures that come up when you do Google Videobob. You have. Like I have this one here. Not to surprise you or anything, but
okay.
When times like this, like you mentioned when you go to Australia and people come over for they geek out on you. Who is it that you geek out over and want to some of the coolest people you've met or would like to meet? Like here in the picture with Doc Brown himself.
Wow, I'm trying to think of some people. I think one of the few. I don't get starstruck often. I think one of the few times I literally started getting weak in the knees is when I met Meatloaf, because I'm a big Meatloaf fan. Working for Vinnie Paul and touring, driving his bus and stuff, he was such a huge celebrity that he afforded me the ability to meet some amazing rock stars. So you go through my house, there's pictures of me and every major rock star you can think of. I mean, Lemmy, Dio, whether it's AC/DC, Metallica, Judas Priest. I got to actually perform with Judas Priest a couple years ago at the Whiskey A Go-Go because I did a rock and roll fantasy camp, and I'm a huge Judas Priest fan. I actually do a tribute band to Judas Priest called Turbo Lover, where I portray Rob Halford, and I can't sing as good as he can, but because no one can, only dogs can hear what he sings. But, I do my best. And then I have another 80s band where I do 80s music. And so I've been able to become friendly with, like, for instance, some of the guys from Kiss, Gene Simmons, and Eric Singer, their drummer, who replaced Peter Criss. He actually lives in Vegas. I text with him often. He's like, hey dude, I can't wait to come over to your new house. I'm like, this is amazing. I'm actually friends with a lot of amazingly cool drummers. Like Johnny Kelly, the drummer from Typo Negative, was over here just the other day, bringing me a Danzig drum head, because he also works with Danzig. He's playing Quiet Riot right now. He's been in a lot of great bands because he's just a fantastic drummer, And guys like that are never out of work, so everybody wants them. It was the same thing with Vinnie Paul. Like, he turned down, he used to call me up and he'd be like, dude, Billy Idol just called me, wanted me to be drummer in his band, and I was like, really? You should do it. He goes, I'm not playing for Billy Idol, like, he goes, I love Billy Idol, but like, that would be a step down for him because those kind of bands are so frontman heavy. Other than Steve Stevens, you couldn't name a single member of the band. You know what I mean? It's like, he didn't want to be one of those guys. He felt like that was a downgrade, whereas in Hell Yeah, like people, they only went to see the band because they're like, I wish these other guys in the band would move so I could see Vinnie Paul, because that's Vinnie Paul from Pantera, It's like, it was Vinnie Paul from Pantera and some other guys, even though Mudvayne was a pretty big band, nobody gave a crap. They were there to see Vinnie Paul. And now that he died, that band is kaput. Nobody's going to go see them. Nobody cares. So the thing about it is, he afforded me the ability I got to meet everybody. But some of these were rather prostitutional, like Gene Simmons. He does a meet and greet. It costs $6,000, and you pay $6,000. Yeah, it's $6,000, and you get to go meet him and spend time with him. But you get his bass guitar, so he gives you the big axe bass. He signs it, the case, and he literally gave me like bass lessons. I spent like 4 hours with the dude. I played Cold Gin with him. I'm singing with him. He's very attentive. I mean, it was worth every penny. We're talking about a lot of money, but I have a real Gene Simmons bass, the same one he plays on stage, signed by him. I get to spend the whole day with him. And I literally became friends with him. I have his email, and I did a couple other meet and greets. I mean, I paid for them, but he remembered me every time. Hey, Videobob, what's happening? He remembered me well, and I got to be quite, friendly with the guy. And so I've done some of his experiences that I've paid for, but we definitely know each other. And then I got to know Eric a little bit as well. And I got to kind of become part of the KISS Army, the KISS family, meeting the people who work, behind the scenes, got my KISS cup there that I carry with me every day. So I'm a big, big KISS fan, and I'm a big Judas Priest fan. Those are my two number ones. And I got to meet and hang out with both of them. I mean, I got to stand on the stage of the Whiskey A Go-Go and perform Living After Midnight with the band Judas Priest, where me and Rob Halford went toe-to-toe. You can find it on YouTube. You can watch it. But I've also had that experience with a lot of other people, with Kirk Hammett of Metallica, I got to go to Lemmy's birthday party at the Rainbow with Vinny. I got to tour with, we did Family Values, so I got to meet all those guys. We toured with Ozfest. I got stories of hanging out in a back room with Dio, with Tony Iommi. I wanted a picture with Dio, and I asked this guy if he'd take a picture. Turned out it was Geezer Butler taking the picture of me and Dio, and Tony Iommi jumps in the photo. You know what I mean? It's like, who has that picture, right? And so I got to meet all these amazing people. So people come and they look at these pictures, they go, people don't know me. They go, who the hell are you? Like, how do you have these photos of all these actors, these musicians, all these people? And a lot of times it was the car, I would show up to an event and steal the scene, and then whatever the actor or whoever it was would come out and sit in the car. And that happened many times, with like Brett Michaels and other members of different places who would drop what they were doing because they love the Back to the Future car. But then as I started to become my own name, I started to get welcomed into the car community. And so unless you're a real serious old school car guy, you might not know any of these names, but George Barris, who built the original Batmobile, he died a few years ago. I mean, I went to the SEMA Automotive Show in Vegas with him, walking around the show with George Barris. I mean, he's one of the most famous car building guys in the world. And through him, I got to meet other people like Chip Foose and Gene Winfield and, Barry Maguire. And these are all names in the car industry that, if you're really into cars, you would know these guys. But these are all old greasers. We're talking about dudes in their 80s and 90s. And I was at George Barris's funeral in LA a few years ago, and all the greatest car guys in the entire world were there. And I was really blown away and honored to find out how many of those people knew who I was. I walk up and go, hey, man, I'm a huge fan of yours. I'd love to meet. And they go, hey, Videobob, I know you. And I was like, how do you, what? And it was, then I started to realize, I go, oh my gosh, I think I've done some cool stuff, because I can't believe that this guy knows who I am or has heard my name before. So I never in a million years thought any part of my legacy was going to have anything to do with cars because I had spent so much time and effort trying to be, an actor or a comedian or a music video producer or whatever. I had a comedy television show called Comic Spotlight. We did 10 episodes of that. I tried to be a comic. That failed miserably. I am not as funny as I think I am. Comedy is probably that's the hardest thing there is in the world to do. If you can be a successful comedian, you can do anything.
Now,
but
how
I
did you
also
wind
learned
up in the
that,
Ghostbusters reboot?
okay, so how did I end up in? Somebody sent me. They had put a thing in the local freebie paper in Boston looking for extras. And somebody who was up there who knew that it was for Ghostbusters posted it into one of the Ghostbusters forums and go, oh my God, guys, they're making a new Ghostbusters and they're looking for extras. And so I told my wife, Rachel, I go, I'm driving to Boston and I'm going to be an extra in Ghostbusters. She's like, what? I'm like, you want to go? I go, what else are we doing? Let's do it. She goes, okay. So she took a week vacation. We drove up to Boston. I stood in line. I get to the thing. They look at my ID and they go, this says Dallas. How long you been in Boston? I go, about 20 minutes. And they go, what, you drove here from Dallas to do this? You realize this pays $75 a day. I said, listen, I have my own television series called Scream Machines that's on the Reels channel. And we built the Ecto-1. We build Ghostbuster proton packs. I love Ghostbusters. And I thought that if this is, I want to be part of Ghostbusters, which at the time we were calling Ghostbusters 3, but it isn't, right? And they said, hold on just a second. And she gets on the radio. Somebody comes over and they said, come with us. They take me into the wardrobe and they go, all right, this guy, leave him exactly like he looks, right? And I wore this outfit. They go, we Googled you. We know who you are. We want you in the movie. They put me at the very front of this scene. And I'm shooting this. We're there for 3 days shooting this scene. So if you watch the movie, the 2016 Ghostbusters Answer the Call, they're in the concert series catching the green dragon. You'd see me standing at the front of the stage, clear as day. You can't miss me. I'm wearing this right here. Well, Paul Feig, the director, comes over to me and goes, Videobob, can you stay here an additional 3 days? I know you were only scheduled for 3 days, but we need some pickup shots, and we would like some close-ups of you because you're so distinctive looking that if you leave, we're going to have to try to make a double of you. I go, no, I'll stay. I said, as long as I'm in the movie, he says, bring the monitor over here. He goes, you see this bald guy right here? That's you. We need you standing here. So I stood there for 6 days in the same spot as they filmed them catching this dragon. Well, little did I know it's going to be the most hated movie in all of history. But, I was hanging out with the cast and crew afterwards. We were, BSing everything. I got to be friendly with them. I had given copies of my TV show to all the actors. They would come out and in between scenes, they'd be like, hi, Videobob. We watched your show in our trailer. And I was like, wow, that's so cool. And the director, Paul Feig, knows me by name, and I'm just an extra. But I wasn't SAG-AFTRA, so I wasn't allowed to have a speaking line. He said, I can't give you a spoken line because you're not union. You're so I can just have you stand here. I go, okay. So I screwed myself out of having the ability to have it to say, because, even if I just go, they can't record your voice unless you're a union guy, right? But anyway, so that's how I got into that. Are you
joined the union now? Are you in the union now? No.
The downside to being in a union is if you are in a union, you can't do any reality shows because reality shows don't hire union people. Mm-hmm. So I decided that I'm probably not going to be doing any acting, but I probably will continue cameo because I've cameoed in a lot of reality shows. I've done Food Network shows. AMS Pictures that did my thing is here in Dallas. and they all the time have me do something. Like I'm about to do, they want to use my tour bus for something they're doing, and so they'll have me on screen, tour bus driver, tour bus, and they'll rent the bus because I have a Prevost tour bus, or whatever. I was on a Food Network show with them called Dallas Cakes, where they made a DeLorean shaped cake, and then I gave it away to the cast of Back to the Future. So I do other reality show cameos, and I'll probably return to Pawn Stars again and shows like that. And if you're union, you can't do those things because they don't do that.
Right.
Let me ask you this: you were able to meet John Landis, and you had the Blues Brothers vehicle there. What was that like to meet the man himself?
See, I could keep you here for hours with these stories. It's all because of the cars. John Landis is on the Dallas Film Commission, and my friend runs the Alamo Draft House, James Wallace, and he, we knew they were going to be doing a 40th anniversary of Animal House with John Landis in attendance. So we run down there with the Bluesmobile, and as John Landis pulls up in his, the car they brought him in, there's the Bluesmobile, and there we are standing out there, and he gets out with a big smile on his face, and he comes over, and we go, John, we're a huge fan. Could you take a picture with us and sign an autograph? He goes, of course I will. Any guys who show up here with a car like this? Absolutely. He goes, this is my baby. And we're BSing with John, and I said, hey, have you ever seen on Route 66 in Joliet, Illinois, there's a Bluesmobile up on a pole? He goes, yes, I have. I've seen that. He goes, I built that car. I've built like 8 Bluesmobiles. He goes, you're the guy. I go, I'm the guy ripping you off your show. I'm that guy plagiarizing your movie. And he's like, I love it. I love it. He goes, your work is fantastic. He goes, people send me pictures of that car all the time. I've seen it in person. I've taken a picture with that car. He says, give me your address. He takes out his thing. He writes down my address. A few days later, a box appears, priority box. And in the box is a handwritten letter from John Landis thanking me for being a fan. And he gave me screen-used patches, police patches, from the police, the Lake Wazipamonte Police and the Illinois State of Corrections. He gave me some exclusive Blues Brothers things that weren't available in the U.S. and some toys. He just gave me a little gift packet from his desk, and I was like, this is amazing that now John Landis, who is director of this, knows my name, knows me by name, mailed me a gift box. And it was because he was just an appreciation of me appreciating him back. So I have so many amazing stories of stuff. There's always this, usually you'll see a picture of me with somebody, and there's so much more to it than just a fleeting moment where I snapped a picture, because a lot of the times there's a backstory to the picture, where we spent some time together, or something happened after the photo or before the photo, or, and that was one of the great things about working with Vinnie Paul, because I'd be at his house and maybe Dave Navarro is over there or something. And Dave Navarro says to me, hey man, can you call me a taxi? I need a ride. I go, I'll give you a ride. He's like, nah, you don't have to do that. I go, it's on the way. I'll give you a ride. Next thing you know, me and Dave Navarro are at the Waffle House having chili at 3 a.m. People are like, what is this photo? And I'm like, well, that was the time that, there's pictures of me and various rock stars or whoever in everyday life situations. And they're like, how did this happen? How did you end up cooking fajitas with Matt Shadows from Avenged Sevenfold? Or why are you and, Dan Aykroyd, behind this bar drinking vodka, And I'm like, hey, it's either I was with somebody who was amazing, or I had one in my cars. It's kind of a coattail rider situation. I'm either riding the coattails of my car or one of my rock stars friends. But after, about 20 years of that, I finally got my own coattails to ride, and started, doing my own things, and there was nothing more both embarrassing and satisfying than walking through a grocery store with Vinnie Paul, and someone came up to us and somebody came up and go, oh my God, I can't believe I'm meeting you. And Vinnie grabs his pen and he starts to get ready to write an autograph, and they go, Videobob, I love your show. And they push Vinnie out of the way, and he's standing there going, and I'm like, and this is Vinnie Paul. And they go, who? Oh, I don't listen to heavy metal. I listen to, and he's just like, that happened once, but no. Everybody knew who Vinnie Paul was. He was.
Can't wait for your autobiography, man.
That dude changed my life so much. I owe him an incredible lot because he gave me a launching platform that I would have never had. He gave me the opportunity to have my videos played on MTV. I miss him every single day of my life. It's like I'm missing a finger or something. Like it's just every single day I open up that Facebook memories or whatever. Like there he is.
Right.
He was he was a brother and a father and a friend to me. And I don't think I could ever express to him how much he meant to me. I mean, I told him, and he knew it, and we remained friends up until the night he died. I texted him the night that he died, because and we texted each other every day. And it's these last couple of years without him has been really, really hard because, listen, we weren't like best friends like he was with his assistant, but we were in constant touch with each other. And I mean, and listen, the dude trusted me enough. Like, I went and stayed with him at his house for Christmas. He would let me stay at his house while he wasn't there, use his cars. I mean, we had a really close relationship, obviously. So, we were more than friends, but, it's been really hard without him because he definitely made a huge, huge difference in my life as far as all these, he gave me all these opportunities I would have never had without him. 100%. I give him that credit. Whatever my talents are, whatever is irrelevant because there's people out there that went to school to learn graphic design and they will never have a full page ad in an international magazine. But I had full page ads in metal magazines monthly because I worked for his record company and he would call me up. He goes, I need a full page ad for this CD, and, like the reason I know Johnny Kelly from Typo Negative is because he had a band called Seventh Void, which was on our label. And I worked with him. So, like I would do a full page ad for Seventh Void and then we would put it in like Metal Hammer or whatever magazine. And so, and I don't have a degree in arts. I don't have a graphic design degree. I just went on to Photoshop and slapped this thing together. And there it is, a full page ad and, Metal Edge. And I know people that went to school that are still paying student loans and they'll never get an ad inside of a national magazine. So, I got opportunities. I probably would have never gotten videos on MTV had it not been the ability to work with him. So I definitely owe him a lot of credit for that. And so that's why I have. It's hard to show it, but I tattooed his little autograph right here on my arm. It's in a position that's kind of hard to show it, but when he died, I tattooed that on my arm because he's always with me.
Right. Well, Videobob, I want to thank you for spending the last hour and 15 minutes with us. It's been an honor to live life through your eyes and to learn about everything that you've done. And I when you finally make the move, I would really much like to maybe get back in contact with you, and once you're all set up, maybe we'll do this again and see how you're doing in Vegas.
I haven't closed on the house yet. We are like a day or two away from the funding, and at the time of this recording, the election results haven't been posted yet, and I don't know if that's going to affect things, Right. And so I'm really worried because we're in an unstable times, and I'm just on the edge of my seat because buying a property of this magnitude is kind of difficult in today's times, And the plan is to move the whole shop to Vegas. Some of my employees are going with me. I'm combining my house and my shop together. We've got a 1 acre property over on the east side in between Tropicana and Russell on Mountain Vista area over, it's over towards the east side, but we're only still 10 or 15 minutes from the strip. And we're going to be building our cars there. We're going to be renting our cars. We're going to be doing all the stuff that Bob's Prop Shop does. I'm sure that I'll be in a couple of bands out there just as well. And, people keep asking me, what are you going to go to Vegas for? I go, dude, have you been there? It's awesome. I've been dreaming of living there my whole life. I just could never afford to do it. I could never manage to do it. and now I'm in a position where I can. But with COVID and the political things happening, it just makes it more difficult. Because if all I had to do was go out there and buy a house, that'd be easy. I have to buy a house and also have, my shop. And combining that into one place is a difficult thing. I've been looking for our property for like 3 years, and I finally found one. And, if I don't get this house, it's just not going to work. I'll be delayed again for who knows how long. So I'm hoping this works out. And if all goes well, I'll be out there within a few months. And that's the plan. And if the country gets opened back up and everything gets going back the way it should be, you'll be able to come to Vegas. You'll be able to go on ghost tours in the XL1. You'll be able to drive the DeLorean time machine up and down the strip. We'll have that yellow Scarface car going up and down the strip. We'll have Knight Rider, Scooby-Doo van, and all kinds of cool stuff.
Well, I look forward to it. My son is stationed just 3 hours away in 29 Palms, so I would definitely love to come by and visit you. And thank you once again for joining us today. We really, really appreciate it.
How long is the show normally?
Oh, about 45 minutes.
So you either have 2 shows or you have your world's longest show.
I might break this up into a 2-parter. We can get somebody with a cool voiceover room that could say, next week, part 2.
We can make that happen.
Okay. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Thanks for joining us on The Geek and I. Well, we want to thank you for joining us on The Geek and I. Hey, Jeff, what did you think?
Oh, sorry. I just got so excited. How cool was that? This guy is extraordinary.
I'm so nervous right now. He's just such a great guest. I'm literally shaking at his greatness. And it was just such an enjoyable, just to sit here and listen to his stories is just amazing. So thanks for being here again this week, Jeff. We'll see you again next week. And as you know, we are part of the Geek News Now podcast network. Visit geeknewsnow.net for all your geeky news and information. We are also sponsored by Sumner Twins Talent. Find them on Facebook at facebook.com/Sumner Twins. And we are sponsored by Metallic Dice Games for everything you need for your gaming experience. Just go to metallicdicegames.com, use code GNN at checkout, and save 10%. You can find us at facebook.com/Geek and I Podcast. And we will see you again in 7 days, right, Jeff?
Oh, yeah. We'll see you again, as we say, on the next one. Laters.